The bliss of the abyss, it's here now.
Hello and welcome to the Bliss of the Abyss. My name is Robert Newmark Jones. This is my podcast. Thank you very much for tuning in. As always, apologies for the slight delay in getting this out to you. I always have an excuse, don't I? So don't worry about it. I've got an excuse. But, you know, can't really complain with free content, can you? And ad-free, I may add. Doesn't have to be. You know, I could be sprinkling ads all over this puppy, raking in the coin. But that's not my way. I'm more interested in providing you with the seamless listening experience of ad-free media. Brought to you by Benetton. What? Brought to you by Remington. What? Who is it brought to you by? Brought to you by... Why can I only think of ones that sound like Remington, Bennington? Remington, Bennington. Hello, Remington, Bennington, your first port of call for all things 3D printed. Anyway, here I am. I have been deep into rehearsals for the play The Passenger, which is taking up all of my time. I'm going to provide links in the show notes for you. We're going to be running at the Finborough Theatre, which is in London, from February the 10th to the 15th of March 2025. I am starring as Otto in an amazing play directed by Tim Supple, former artistic director of The Young Vic, written by Nadia Menuhin, and starring an incredible cast of very talented people, plus me. So please do come along. It would be great to see anybody who is listening to this podcast, especially. I'll have a special treat. If you come to see this show and you say, hey, I listen to your podcast, I will give you a special prize. I'm not going to tell you what it is because that would maybe tip the scales. And I want this to be pure. I want this to be unadulterated. So if you come along and you say, yo, especially if you say, yo, I'll give you two prizes. But if you say, hi, I listen to the podcast and that's why I'm here, I will give you a little special treat. Don't worry, it's nothing creepy. Hey, take that out of your head, all right? Don't you be thinking like that. I'm a upstanding member of society. So yeah, I'm going to be in this amazing play. It's called The Passenger. Let me tell you a bit what it is. I'll read from the press release. Kristallnacht, Berlin, November 1938. The streets of Germany are an orgy of state-sanctioned violence. As Nazi Stormtroopers... I'm not going to cut that because that is bad, isn't it? Stormtroopers. As Nazi stormtroopers batter down his door, respected businessman Otto, hi, that's me, flees his home and finds himself plunged into a new world order, his life dissolved overnight. Betrayed by family, friends and colleagues, and desperately trying to conceal his Jewish identity, he takes train after train across Germany in a race to escape his homeland that is no longer home. So yeah, that's the story. It's amazing. It has a really cool backstory to it as well, which I will read from this press release rather, of the play. And it's such a cool backstory. And I just devoured this novel that it's based on. It was written by 23-year-old Ulrich Alexander Boskowitz, who wrote The Passenger at breakneck speed in 1938 in the immediate aftermath of Kristallnacht. Rediscovered 70 years later, The Passenger became an international hit, was translated into over 20 languages, and was a Sunday Times top 10 bestseller more than 80 years after it was originally published. So this is a world premiere of this adaptation of this novel turned into a play, based on this book that was written in 38, was published, but only on a small scale, and then was never published again until, like it says here, 70, 80 years later, when it was retranslated and given a big release and became this amazing hit. And it's amazing because this young man, Boskowitz, who died in 1942, never lived to see the end of World War II, never lived to see the horrors of what Nazi Germany became. He only wrote about what he knew at the time, what he saw at the time, which was, of course, the ending of democracy in Germany and the beginnings of a fascist ethno-state, a totalitarian regime, but couldn't have quite imagined, as I'm sure so many people couldn't, and some people still can't, quite imagine the scale of the brutality of the extermination, the industrialized attempt to eradicate various peoples, most notably Jews, but Roma, disabled, Slavs. The list goes on and on of the people that the Nazis tried to eradicate. And Boskowitz wrote this before this industrialized death machine was fully implemented, and yet it is prescient. It gropes towards the future, the soon to be future that no one could have known about at the time, even though there were signs, of course, looking back through history. And there are all these amazing parallels with my own personal history. My grandfather was a similar age to Boskowitz at the time. He studied in Paris at the Sorbonne, just like Otto's son does in the play. He also emigrated to the UK. He also was interned in the UK as an enemy alien because, of course, they were Germans. And, well, Britain declared war on Germany, so all Germans are enemy aliens. Of course, this was later cancelled once it was clear that the Nazis were anti-Semitic and these people were Jews who had been fleeing them, and so were, of course, not enemy aliens, and they were released. But yep, both of their fathers, my great-grandfather Ulrich's grandfather, fought for Germany in World War I. They considered themselves German first, Jewish second. That was their identity. That was who they were. And to be told, no, you're not German, and to be told, no, you're a second-class citizen, you're a traitor, to be told all of these terrible things was a shock that I know my grandfather, in some ways, didn't ever recover from, and in some ways, still had a fondness for the Germany that wasn't anymore, and that never would be again. Of course, Germany. I'm not saying Germany now is anything like a totalitarian state. Of course not. It's a functioning democracy, albeit threatened by far-right influence. But of course, that Germany that would never become again because of the impact of the attempt to establish a 1,000-year Reich. So anyway, look, I've been working Monday to Saturday, finishing at 10 p.m. and I'm in every rehearsal. And I'm also learning my lines and learning how to work. And I also fucked up my knee and blah, 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 blah. Anyway, those are the excuses why I haven't given you a podcast episode for a while, and why this one is going to be a little bit short. It's not going to be full on, endless chatter, as you are used to, oh beloved bliss of the Abyssites. But here I am, turning one out for you, because I love you and I care for you and I care about this project that we are doing together. You, the listener, I, the speaker, the editor, the producer, the host, all of the rest of it. Yes, so that's kind of all I can talk about, though, because it's so all-consuming. It's taking up all of my life. I did mention, of course, that I fucked up my knee. What did I do to destroy my knee this time, you may ask? Long-time listeners of the podcast will, of course, remember me snapping my meniscus in two during COVID. Oh, what good times it was. Remember that? We were all locked at home, and some people got really fit and healthy, didn't they? Some people wrote a novel, of course. Some people started making bread, sourdough. I did that for about a week. And then I ripped my meniscus and was forced to be bedbound and became overweight. So that's what I did with my pandemic. What did you do, dear listener? So I'm not a hero, although I look like one. Not all heroes wear capes. Although lots of heroes do wear capes. Now, to be fair, that expression, not all heroes wear capes, but the majority, what, is it the majority? I don't know. Shall I Google that? Is there any point? I think rather than the majority wearing capes, that's not what it is. What it is that among all the cape wearers in the world, a majority are superheroes. Is that fair to say? I mean, is that fair to say? I mean, no one wears capes. I can't think of anyone in my life who wears a cape. I know the Mighty Boosh wore capes for a bit. That was funny for a minute in 2003 or whatever it was. Who wears capes? And it's going to tell me superheroes, of course. Maybe how many superheroes wear capes? How Superman, Batman? This is why people tune in to this podcast, eh? Gabby Roslin, who gave me a shout out when I was on her radio show. Why don't you come on the podcast and then people don't have to listen to this? How many superheroes wear capes? What purpose did capes serve? Were they purely for looks? Surely not, right? I mean, there must be a point to how many heroes do wear capes. Here we go. My guess is less than 30%. I mean, come on. Only 4 out of 20 Justice League members wear a cape. Well, come on, let's see. Nerds, come on, nerds. Do me well. Probably best way to figure out is to do it based on when they first appeared. 60s to 80s heroes don't seem to wear capes, as often with older heroes having them. 90s to modern day heroes, the capes become the rare exception. My guess is less than 30%. Here we go. And then there's a list of Black Adam sometimes wears a cape. Sinestro sometimes wears a cape. Nightwing doesn't wear a cape. That's about it. Characters affiliated with Batman and Superman wear capes, and even then it's hardly consistent. Okay. I mean, basically, is the conclusion going to be some wear capes? That's, yeah, well, not all superheroes wear capes. As I said, capes keep you warm and dry while still letting you get to your pockets, or your sword can be used as a blanket. They're cheap and easily made. Note, the last serious use of capes was by American policemen who wore long cape-like garments with no sleeves well into the 1960s. The reason capes went away is they are incompatible with cars or sitting in chairs in general. What? Hold on a second. Now, I was really with them until that last bit, because incompatible with cars or sitting in chairs in general, that kind of assume, okay, the cars came around, more people were in cars. So, yeah, incompatible. I can see that. Why am I wearing this cape in this car? It's really awkward. But sitting in chairs in general, that's kind of trying to suggest that people weren't sitting in chairs until, well into the cape era. And then suddenly people were like, these capes and these chairs don't really go together, do they? Which is patently absurd with a Z. Absurd. Which is all over a long roundabout way of saying, I have started wearing a cape. I don't. Is it possible to look sexy while wearing a cape? I don't think the cape ever adds to the sexiness. I think if you were sexy and you wore a cape, then I wouldn't think, oh, and the cape really, really brings it out of you. I don't think so. I'm going to do an image search. Here are women. I mean, these women are wearing no clothes or very few clothes under a cape, which is really the sexy part, I suppose. Then there's a cloak. This person's wearing a cloak, trying to pass it off as a cape, and it's not. Then there are people cosplaying as superheroes, wearing capes. And then there are people trying to look cool in capes, and it's not quite working. And then there are people who look quite sexy. There aren't any men in capes, so these are all women. Has the cape now been co-opted by the female? That's the question. Does any man dare wear a cape? Man wearing a cape. Here we go. Here are a few men wearing some capes. Yeah, it's not. Then I don't see any of these guys pulling it off. There's some haute couture attempts to wear a cape. Someone's saying that it's a trend, but that's townandcountrymag.com. I don't know if I can trust them. Here's a nerd wearing a cape. He doesn't look cool. I don't know. Listen, Victorian men's fashion. Here we go. There's a Victorian man wearing a cape. Now, weirdly enough, he pulls it off. I mean, he's a drawing, though. Does that change anything? I think if you're a Victorian gent wearing a cape, fair enough. Other than that, get out of town. I don't think so. But anyway, I think I'll be Could I be the guy who brings capes back? No. The answer is no. The answer is no, Robert. You are not bringing a cape back any more than you're bringing anything back. You're bringing stuff forward, mate. That's what you're for, hey? Bringing trends forward. For example, capes. Sorry. Anyway, what else can I tell you about? I'm going to have enchiladas for dinner. No one cares. No one cares. No one cares. I can't really tell you about anything other than this play. That is really taking up so much of my time. So I can tell you more about that, I suppose, but I'm not really allowed to talk about all of it. I've told you the press release. I've told you about sort of the cast and crew a little bit without doing too many just endless shout-outs. I don't want to just list people's names. All the information is out there. None of this is hidden. None of this is secret. Apart from, obviously I can't tell you all the plot. Now that would be spoiler, which I'm not going to do. I'm not that kind of person. How do you feel about spoilers? Be honest with me right now, in this moment. Look into your heart and tell me. How do you feel about spoilers? Do you mind? My mother, for example, who I will shout, Victoria, doesn't care about a spoiler. And in fact, she goes so far as to even, with a new book which she hasn't read, she'll flick to the back and read the end. Just like that. Without having even read the book. She'll read the blurb maybe and then be like, right, let's see how it ends. And just be like, oh, interesting. And then read the book. It's not like she's like, well, now I know it, I don't need to. No. She'll still read the whole book. She just wants to know the ending first, which is remarkable and utterly different to me. I am the kind of person, I've been watching The Traitors, which is now finished, of course. So, wait, I can talk about something else. That's the only other thing I've been doing. So, spoiler alert in 3, 2, 1. Fucking hell, Leanne, why'd you have to let Frankie go? Etc. Traitors chat. But the reason that I bring up The Traitors is because, spoilers, right? I did my best to avoid spoilers. I didn't look at the news. I removed myself from the subreddit. I didn't look at social media, which is actually something that's increasingly easy to do because it's becoming worse and worse. Unbelievable not to make this show about the news because, of course, the Bliss of the Abyss is a haven from all of that. But my God, the tech giant kneeling, kissing the ring dance that we've seen from all these billionaires is something to turn your stomach upside down, isn't it? Jesus Christmas. Talk about Nazi parallels. Did I just lose all my right-wing listeners? Do I have any? Do I have any Nazi listeners? If you're a Nazi listener to this show, welcome. Please message me and tell me why you listen to the show, why you're a Nazi, and if there's anything I can do to change your mind. But anyway, The Traitors was good, wasn't it, hey? If you've not watched The Traitors, do yourself a fiddly favour. Don't watch the recent one because there'll be like loads of spoilers in the media about it now and you'll accidentally find something. Watch an old one. Watch the UK season 2 one. That was my favourite one. Or the US season 1 one is good. Or the Australia one season 2 one is good. Am I coming across as normal by recommending different seasons of The Traitors? Am I coming across as normal? First time for everything. Wow, if you've not listened to this show before, this is what it's like. So, if you don't like it, then, still stay subscribed and still listen to all the past episodes. But it is all like this. So, maybe you want to broaden your horizons, yeah? It's not my fault you don't like it. Well, actually, maybe it is my fault that you don't like it. Well, it could be Nils' fault. He edits a couple of episodes now and again, doesn't he? So, can't take full blame. Guest editors, partly in gunfire. But listen, this is really all I have time for today. Sorry. I am sorry, actually. You might not think I am. And I resent that slightly, because I am sorry. And I'm sorry for that, especially. I'm not going to cut that. Because this is raw, yeah? This is real. This is real. Yeah, so look, that's the episode of the podcast for this week. Once rehearsal's finished, assuming the play is in a good state, I'll be a little bit more free. Maybe I'll be able to bring you some updates. Maybe I'll be able to bring someone from the play on. Maybe I'll take my recording equipment with me and grab someone to get an interview with once we have a bit more free time and I've got a bit more space to breathe. And I better go because I better learn my lines because I don't know what I'm doing. I love you very much. Thanks for tuning in. Goodbye.
Thanks for listening to the show. If you've enjoyed it, please give us 5 stars and consider becoming a subscriber and maybe even supporting us on Patreon. Really, really, really helps me continue making this show. If you haven't enjoyed it, then you can fuck off. Many, many thanks to Nils Hennis Steer for the amazing music and to Dave Fox for the cool artwork. Please keep coming back every week for more Bliss of the Abyss.
Message 1.